Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you very much, Tamara Dickinson, Mrs. Tamara Dickinson, to be with us in this meeting, this interview. I would like to introduce Raissa and me, and then I will introduce you, Tamara, and then you can complete your credentials. Okay, Raissa, please. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Raissa. I'm a nurse and I work with the incontinence, and I would like listen in Tamara today. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Raissa. Raissa has been our member in the department in the SOBEST International Relationships, who established this connection with Mrs. Tamara Dickinson, but she will be replaced in some time next time by Dr. Gisela Assis. Of course, Raissa will continue to collaborate with us in this department and with SOBEST. Thank you very much, Raissa, for being with us today. Before introducing Ms. Tamara Dickinson, I'd like to mention that this interview aims to improve the International Continence Society, ICS, divulgation among Brazilian nurses and the other healthcare professionals, to clarify some associations issues and to increase the number of ICS Brazilian members. The interview will take around 20 or 30 minutes and will be recorded for translation and divulgation in SOBEST social media, in our Brazilian Association of Estomatherapy. We prepared some questions to guide our interview, but I'd like first to introduce our invited member, ICS member, Mrs. Tamara Dickinson. Mrs. Tamara Dickinson is graduated from the University of South Alabama, United States, with a master's degree in nursing. She currently serves as an adult geriatric nurse practitioner in the Department of Radiation Oncology at UT Southwestern Medical Center. She has been a recognized authority in incontinence around the world in dysfunctional elimination and pelvic floor dysfunction. She's board certified in urology nursing and continence nursing, and is a frequent national and international speaker and the author on these topics. She is recipient of the COVID National Association for Continence Rodney Apple Continence Cash Temple Award, and the Society of Urology Nurses and Associate President's Trophy for outstanding contributions to the organization. Currently, Tamara is an active member of the International Continence Society as a member of the Nursing and the Ethics Committee, and this is the reason for you be with us today. Thank you very much, Mrs. Tamara Dickinson, and please complete the introduction of yourself if you want to do that, please.
Thank you, Vera. No, I have been in urology and incontinence work for about almost, but not quite 30 years. So it has been a very good career. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a bit different for me now. As a nurse practitioner, I work with radiation oncology, but specifically my practice is in prostate cancer patients. And so I do a lot of pelvic floor assessment, pelvic floor exercise teaching, external catheters, medication management during treatment as well as after treatment. And then my clinic focuses a lot on long-term survivorship and follow-up. So, and this is my first year as the chair of the ICS Nursing Committee. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for being with us. I think that we can. It's a pleasure to have you. Before our interview, we were talking, and then I explained it to Mrs. Dickinson about the scope of action of our Brazilian association and the importance to have this kind of a connection, alliance between ICS and SOBEST. Thank you very much. I think that we can start our interview. So the first question, please tell us a brief history about ICS.
So the ICS was a thought in the early 1970s. There became a global interest in bladder and bowel function and dysfunction, and there was a lot of lack of agreement between disciplines, a lot of lack of agreement in the disciplines themselves. And there was an idea to create an international collaborative organization. Mm-hmm. And the first meeting, thank you to the ICS office for giving me this data. First meeting was held in Exeter, UK in 1971, and there was only 50 participants. Mm-hmm. So since then, the ICS has grown. There's 3,000 members from 80 different countries. And the thing that's always meant the most to me is that the ICS says that they're a multidisciplinary organization. And that's really, really true, because there are physicians, there are nurses, there are physicists, physiotherapists, biomedical engineers, other basic scientists, physicians from many different backgrounds aside from surgeons. There are geriatricians, lots of different things. So, and then the history, a little bit of nursing is in about a decade after their inception in the early 70s, and then early 80s, the nurses were really highlighted by the annual meeting chair that they had valuable contributions in a nursing context to the mission and vision of the ICS. And the nurses were really encouraged to take a more active role. It wasn't until 2009, actually, that the nurses became a formal established committee after quite a few years of being a subcommittee under the Education Committee. So the mission of the nursing committee of the ICS is to provide leadership to advance science of bladder, bowel, and pelvic floor health, collaborating like we're doing now, and encouraging research and education and development of more evidence-based practice, which I think is really important, because there's a lot of nursing intervention that we do, and the evidence and scientific evidence to back it up is not really there. So that's something we're working really hard on right now. Developing education materials and identifying issues related to nursing continence care.
Great. This is an important aim of the association, be multidisciplinary, because it's a crucial point that not always we see. No? So
now, there are a lot of organizations, I feel like, that say they're multidisciplinary, but what that really includes is usually physicians, nurses, and that's about it. And advanced practice providers here in the United States. But the ICS, I think, is definitely a very unique organization in their inclusion of everyone.
You know, Tamara, SOBEST is also multidisciplinary, but of course, almost of our members are nurses, almost of them. But this is a goal that we have to take this multidisciplinarity. And we have been many good products, educational materials that nurses have been constructing inside the ICS. It's very, very, very nice to see this kind of evolution of the nursing. What are the ICS goals, mission, and values?
So it's really kind of what, I already discussed. It's this advancing basic, there's a whole nother arm of basic science that's involved in the ICS, but basic science and clinical science. And there's a lot of education and research activities. But along with that, I think that one of the things that also makes the ICS unique is that there's a lot in the role of advocacy, patient advocacy, and things like that, that you again don't see in a lot of other medical-based organizations.
Yes.
So, but I think that basic science arm even adds more to that multidisciplinary team that occurs within the ICS. There's lots of opportunity to work with disciplines you might not have ever had the opportunity to work with. But it's very much about advancing the science, the research, the advocacy, and doing and being kind of the world leader, organizational leader in the continence and pelvic floor field.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. But it's interesting, this aspect of patient advocacy. It's a good example to follow. It's very interesting. Very interesting. Could you please explain a little about the ICS organizational structure?
So it's registered. It's a little bit different in different countries. I know, being involved with organizations here in the US and then having been involved with the ICS, the organizations here in the United States are very much registered like any other business type organization. But in the UK, ICS is actually registered as a global charity. And so they have somewhat different kinds of rules and things. It's registered as a global charity in the United Kingdom. So there is an incredibly valuable group of people at the office in Bristol, at the ICS offices there, and the staff is unbelievable in how helpful they are with facilitating just about everything. And, going from the last few years from the in-person meetings all of a sudden to having to come together as a virtual meeting. And I think they did a really good job with that. But they work with the ICS Board of Trustees. So the Board of Trustees is kind of the governing body, the officers, if you will, of the organization. The General Secretary functions as a lot of organizations would consider the president of the organization. And then there's the officer or the trustees, which I don't know if it's the first, but it's definitely the first since I can remember that we have a nurse member on the Board of Trustees now, Frankie Bates from Canada. So that's very, very exciting. And then there's lots of committees underneath the Board of Trustees. The nursing committee, which I'm now chair of, and the ethics committee, which I've been involved in and still a member. The urodynamics committee, which I was on that inaugural committee years ago. So there's a lot of different committees, and I think that's where people can really find an interest and get involved. The committee work is not onerous in its involvement. it's very manageable in terms of time commitment. And there's about 200 members within the organization right now actively working on different committees. There's lots of different committees for lots of different interests. The application process for that is it's a 3-year commitment, and when they send out these news alerts and things like that, they'll let you know that there's these positions that are going to be needing to be filled for different committees, and they often require multidisciplinary representation. So there's often calls for specifically a nursing member to be involved with a certain committee. And the application process is an application, a CV, and a disclosure of any conflicts of interest. So it's relatively simple, and I think that that's a nice way to begin working with the ICS. And when you attend the meetings or read through all of the news alerts and the things that are sent, there's a lot of you can really kind of see, I think, what you as an individual might be interested in a particular committee's work or area of interest.
How many members do you have in nursing committee nowadays?
It's usually 10 or 11. I'm trying to think. I think we have 10 right now. And then we have also, sometimes their committees are allowed by the board to have what's called a co-opted member, which is not a member with a 3-year commitment. It's a member that maybe has a particular background in something that's relative to a project that the committee's working on. And that person can function in the committee for a period to help, get this project accomplished. So I currently have a co-opted member in the nursing committee right now.
Oh, great. And what are the rights and the duties of the ICS members? I think that a little bit connected with the last question. When you become a member, what are your duties, your responsibilities, and what your rights are? What how does
you have the ability to vote on not only the trustees and committee chair positions, but also on revisions to the it's sort of like the bylaws. It's the governing documents for changes with that. There's the ability to have access to the journals, the education materials that are potentially not available to those that aren't members. The nursing content for a period after the annual meeting, there's a period where the registered people have access to the content. But then after, there's a period where any nurses that are members can access the nursing, the content. We've been developing an early career professionals kind of microsite in the website, and that has everything from physios to surgeons, and there's a nursing tab, and there's a variety of videos that have been screened and looked at largely through a lot of shutdown issues by Frankie Bates to be put on the nursing early careers professionals. So if you've got somebody who's new to the continence world, that's a great place to get, information that might be something, new and really helpful for them. And then you have access to that in the journals and the meetings, and it's the networking. It's just a great organization. I think that it's a bit difficult because it is a global organization, and just trying to, schedule a conference call sometimes is challenging, but the office staff does a great job with that. The other thing is, there's different awards, there's abstract submissions. I mean, just because this is, you've never submitted an abstract before doesn't mean that what you have isn't valuable, and it could be something of real benefit to the organization from a nursing perspective. We also have in the ethics committee, we have an ethics abstract award. So it comes with a monetary award for a abstract that addresses ethics issues or has ethical considerations. And that can come from any discipline in nursing.
Of course, ICS is one of our main references about the resources and about network, as you said. The main difficult for us, for Brazilian nurses, is related to the language. The limitation or the restriction of the English language among a great part of the Brazilian nurses is a problem, not just in this relationship with the ICS, but with other international organizations. But we have to try all the time. We have to try to be a member, start with be a member, and then try to belong to a specific committee. It's a very, very nice learning all the time. All the time you learn. You know that I was the first international delegate of Brazil in the WCT in the 1992. I attended the first conference. I was very younger. At that time, I was much younger than today. But of course, I lost many information, etc. But this contact with the people from around all the world, and it's a very nice learning. It's a very nice learning to hear about the other experiences. The difficulties are different from one country to another one. It's a rich experience. Yes.
Yeah, and I think through some of the presentations that they had for this past meeting, it was evident that some of the things you feel like you're going through with COVID is probably unique to your country, but they're really not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very rich. This kind of interchange, this experience. Well, I think that you talked a little bit about this, but if you can repeat, please. How can the ICS members participate in the panel committees? You talked a little bit about this. For example, to belong, I am a member, and then I'd like to belong, just to be part of the committee, not the chair, but part of the committee, nursing committee or ethics committee. How can the members do? Can they do?
Yeah, I think that one of the things is don't delete those news flashes that come through, because they will have when different positions that are going to be needing to be filled, and there's usually about 10 on a committee, and it's at the beginning of each year, so it's going to be coming here around the corner. They'll announce the positions that are available on the different committees, and you take you complete an application that the office sends a link in those news announcements, and you complete this application of interest. It's a simple form. It's not very involved, and they ask for your CV, and then these are reviewed by the current committee, and there's the scoring systems about different things. And just because you're not chosen for a committee of that particular one you apply for, doesn't mean that there's not going to be something else. There's a constant need for people. And again, these co-opted members, if there's something that you have particular interest in that's needed, it's that networking and getting to know people. And it's hard. It's really hard when you're a global organization that doesn't have and then the language is like you said, also an issue, and I think you're not alone in Brazil with that issue. There's I think a lot of our Asian counterparts have difficulties, in different parts of the world. And likewise, I do well to speak English and a handful of words in Spanish. So it's unfortunate, but that's unfortunately the life of most Americans.
Yes. But we have to overcome this difficult, and of course,
the committees are so varied. I mean, there's nursing, there's ethics, and there's physios, but then there's also education and scientific, and there's news and like publications, so like the media type things. I mean, there's lots of different things. So there's a lot going on, and then they may put out a call for somebody who's interested in working on a particular project or paper. And that may be a way to become where you can interact and network with people through the course of working on this project, that then you might identify another particular committee that you might be more interested in. So those are not big commitments necessarily. They're a commitment to help revise a terminology paper, or something along those lines that you have particular interest in.
Of course. Before we finish, I'd like to question you about there is some kind of financial support to develop of research. For example, how does it work? For example, there is some kind of application of grant that ICS, not award, but a grant that you can apply. We can apply, for example. Of course, working together.
Yeah, there are some research funds. They're not large, I'll tell you. They're not for large projects, but there are some. And like I said, there's awards for abstracts. There's awards for like the ethics award that the ethics committee gives. There's monetary, monies that are given for that someone could choose to use towards further research in an area or something along those lines. There are some grant funding, but I'm honestly not that familiar with it.
Because here in Brazil, we of course we have some grants, mainly public, from federal or from state organizations, agencies. But in federal level, we had a lot of cut of this grant, more than half of it reduced a lot, and sometimes we don't have, many times we don't have the fund for research. Even I work in public university, etc., but it's not easy. It's not easy.
No, and unfortunately, I think you're not alone in your country with that. I think there's a lot of that, particularly for continence care when there's other,
yes.
you know, other things. It's very difficult. And I hear that in the nursing committee, and I hear that in the ethics committee, and I hear that from people that I've met through being involved with the ICS. It's definitely a significant issue. And healthcare has been so, you know, so overwhelmed with the costs of the pandemic as well. It just doesn't don't matter.
But it's terrible when people and mainly the managers in government don't believe in science. This is terrible. This is terrible. And we live in a moment, in a very, very difficult political moment here, besides economic, of course. But it's terrible. It's terrible. I'd like to ask you, Raissa, do you like to do any other question before we finish our interview?
Eu gostaria que você perguntasse a ela da possibilidade da gente estar traduzindo alguns guidelines, né? Com a chancela do ICS.
Yes, good question. In our department, in our international relationship department of SOBEST, of our association, we have some initiatives to spread, of course, the divulgation of the scientific material, etc. Is it possible to translate some ICS documents, of course, according to our analysis and our demands here, because you have been done this with other related to the other areas. For example, in wound care, sometimes we are part of the panel in the development of consensus, but sometimes we receive the consensus, for example, the guidelines, and then we translate to Portuguese, to Brazilian Portuguese, and link with or put or insert this document, translated document, in our social media. This is exactly because our difficult for English with the English language. Sometimes we translate this document. Is it possible to do that? And how we must proceed to translate, for example, any document, any ICS document?
I will have to check with Avicia about that process.
Okay. Of course, we would do that formally. We would take for allowance or for authorization from you, but it would be interesting to have the procedures to do that. To obtain this authorization to have this document translated and of course divulgated in our media.
Okay, let me check
with all the ICS credits, of course, with the authorship, etc. Of course, just a translation.
Right. Let me check with the office.
Okay. Please.
I honestly have no idea how that process works.
Okay, thank you. Raissa or Gisela or me will contact you about this question. Okay. I'm not sure if you have a question, Raissa. No. We finished this interview. Tamara, Any final message? Any other comment, please?
No, I think that, it's a great organization. I hope that we can, as nurses, work together more and develop more relationships on an international level. And you're like the WOC nurses here in the United States, and the WOC meeting is actually being held here in my town in Fort Worth, Texas in June. So if you have the ability to come to what we call Cowtown, where there's lots of rodeo and cowboys, then we'd love to have you here.
Thank you very much. I intended to attend the meeting because it will be joined with the WCT also. But I think that it is a great conference. I had been there in the past, and I think that the last one I attended, WCN Congress, I attended was in 2018 or 19, I don't remember, but I have been attending this conference in the United States. I think that it's really one of the best WC conferences around the world. And this WCN meeting Congress inspires us a lot. I have a good friendship with Michael Gray. It's he's a very nice colleague, and he supports us all the time here in Latin American countries.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work with Michael over the years.
Yes, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
It's actually going to be, Fort Worth is a very well kept secret, so it's a very, very nice place.
Okay, thank you. We sent some abstracts. I take part, including also the abstract reviewer. I am one of the abstract reviewers in the Congress, and well, I hope that the abstracts are approved. Our abstracts, our Brazilian abstracts. I know that some of our colleagues sent some abstracts to the conference. I hope that we are safe until the middle of next year, until June, when the Congress will be, and then we can.
September will be ICS, hopefully in person in Vienna. So.
Oh, next September. Yes,
yeah.
It's another, well, 1 year. 1 year.
We can hope. We hope.
Yes, we hope around all the world. Well, Tamara, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you, Raissa.
Thank you, Tamara.
Thank you all so much.
And we keep in touch.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Happy holidays.
Yeah, for you too. Bye-bye. I have a holy Christmas and a better 2022, safe and with the harmony, peace, etc. Thank you very much.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.